And welcome into the Pitch Baseball Podcast here for Tuesday night from 6 to 7 every Tuesday on the Backstage Pass YouTube channel. And, of course, Backstage Pass powered by the Sports Guys Podcast Facebook page and the Sports Guys Facebook page. Brandon Morrell and Mike Babbo here, presented by our good friends over at Toera Guitars and also Bangtail Whiskey. Back at you for a great Tuesday night here. And please welcome in the player, the guy with the bat in his hand. Look who's there, the Ranger cap on. Zach Stone back here on the pitch. What's up, Zach?
What's going on, y'all? Yeah, I put the hat on, and then I realized my lighting setup was I just had a big shadow on my face. So I had to move some stuff around.
It's all good. Mike, everything good in your world?
Yeah, everything's great. Just shared our live link with all my friends, and hope everyone is listening. Hope everyone had a great week. What a great weekend of baseball, guys, huh?
Yeah, and the teams that we're going to start right here, Mike, that we were talking a little bit before the show, the teams that are not expected to be in first place, well, that's why they have to play the game. The one that impressed me this week, and I'll say this, after the terrible start, and we'll start right here, Zach, and I'll get your opinion on this too. The Boston Red Sox completely just said to hell with that 0-3 start, getting swept at Fenway for the first time in bukus of years since the 40s, and said, we're just going to turn this thing around. And I know, again, a 2-game lead in the American League East, 11-6, but I guess of the early start, before we get to the good, bad, the ugly later in the program and all the other stuff that we cover, Boston, Zach, what has gotten into them? And I guess as much as we can say, is Alex Cora kind of rubbed off in a good way now? I don't know.
Well, I kind of wondered. I thought about this earlier because I was looking through this team, and I'm looking at like J.D. Martinez and Xander Bogaerts, and once random fun fact of the day. You guys can impress your friends at parties with this one. Xander Bogaerts has yet to hit a home run this season. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
But I thought about the team makeup, and I was like, remind me again why we don't expect this team to be good. I guess it's just because they weren't good last year.
Right.
But holy cow, I mean, Rafael Devers is a monster. He was a guy that was chasing down 60 doubles 2 years ago. This is a good team, and they're hitting like it. They're hitting like, when you read the names off, they're hitting like you would expect all those guys to hit. When you look at J.D. Martinez, you expect him to be a monster, and he is. He has been. When you look at Xander Bogaerts, you expect him to be just an on-base machine and to play a great shortstop, and he is. When you look at Rafael Devers, you expect him to want the ball every time he comes to the plate, and he is. This is I think the biggest surprise for me has been because I look at their pitching and all the question marks that we had on the pitching. So far, so good. A guy like Nathan Eovaldi, who I loved, by the way. It was so great to see him be so successful a few years ago. But, when they give him the big contract, and again, I'm a firm believer, he earned that contract before he had it. So I don't care if he plays another game the rest of his life, he earned that contract. But they give him the big contract, and you go, is he really going to be that good that much longer? And I guess he's proven it this year. He's proven it so far this year, so good for them.
Mike, another thing that's really impressed me, and I want to get to on this, the plate discipline that Boston has showcased out there for Cora and getting with the hitting coach, and maybe there's some adjustments there being made, at the at-bats and taking pitches and drawing some walks and on-base percentage for a few guys going up. That's just my team of the week that's impressed me the most, to come from 0-3 to 11-6.
When you got on-base percentages in the 400s or the high 380s, like Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, Frenchie Cordero, then you're doing something. And this is what the Red Sox used to do when they were winning their pennants in the early 2000s. They were wearing pitchers out, taking pitches, running up the count, running out those starters, and getting into the bullpen. That's what they're doing. And I mean, it's just amazing what one person, Alex Cora, can do, because this is essentially the same team, right? Mm-hmm. They don't have Aaron Seeley like they didn't have him last year. They only had one free agent signing, and that was Kike Hernandez to the 2-year deal, later the Los Angeles Dodgers. And so everybody else is the same. And this is the same team that was 12 games under 500 last year. Mm-hmm. And so for like Zach was saying, Nathan Eovaldi and of course Nick Pivetta. I mean, he's a surprise for sure. What I really like is Matt Barnes. That guy's already got 3 saves, and he's throwing 100 miles an hour, and he's really answered the bell because they really didn't know who was going to be their closer. I didn't think.
Well, don't rookie Garrett Whitlock is already.
Oh,
yeah, that's true. So it's really been a nice surprise because the first week of the season was the Baltimore Orioles because they swept them in Fenway. It's like, hey, maybe this isn't going to last, but it's just like, is Boston really this bad? Well, apparently not. I mean, so good for them.
Yeah, I think, of course, the disappointing team, I hate to say this too, but I knew it was coming when you get a bunch of guys that get put on the COVID list for no intentional reason, but that situation, exposed to it or having to quarantine, use the bulk of the lineup. And look, I'm not going to make excuses for him because this is the way I'm going to come out and say this. Outside of Zach Greinke, the Astros have had terrible pitching. It has been a dumpster fire. Odorizzi is not even worth the money they signed him for. I'm just judging this on a couple of starts, Zach. But again, this team 6-1, now lost 7 out of 8. I get some teams, but you shouldn't be losing 2 out of 3 to the Mariners. Holy crap! I texted Mike that night and said, "Mike, that night you should not be getting swept by the Tigers." I mean, this is. I know. Again, I get it. 7-8, 15 games, what have you, and you look up at the end of the year. But I always say it's how you start, not how you finish. And if this team is expected to put all that stuff behind them, from the trash cans and the cheating and all that kind of stuff, you're not going to sit here and lose. It's a marathon, but 7 out of 8 to teams you should be beating, knowing your starting pitching is in question minus Greinke. I mean, it's got to throw up red flags, Zach, for the Astros right now.
Absolutely. And the thing I want to reiterate the most here, Brandon, what place are they in the West again?
3rd place, right, Mike? 7 and 8, 3rd or 4th place, I think.
They are in 4th, actually.
4th place.
Oh, yeah. 4th.
They are a game. They are 2 games ahead of the Rangers for the cellar. Sorry, Zach.
The Astros are?
Yeah.
Actually, no, they're a game. Excuse me, they're a game ahead of the Rangers because they've played 2 games less than the Rangers. They're 7 and 8. The Rangers are 8 and 9.
Games behind.
Yeah.
Well, technicalities anyway.
Just percentage points.
Yeah. But the pitching and like what you kind of expected. I know they stretched out Odorizzi for the spring and got him in the first start last week with the Tigers. It was pitiful, giving up homers to Badu and some other guys that came in and had a good series. And I'll say this, look, AJ Hinch, I know I'll say this again, 16 games. I'm not judging. When we get to 30, 40, 50 in the All-Star break, we have more to judge. But this Tiger team came in, swept them. You go to Seattle, you lose 2 out of 3. Tonight you're in Colorado. So you get some players back. Altuve's still out. So I don't know. I there's a lot of question marks right now. And I think, again, the team's not playing up to its potential, Zach. It's not.
I think you hit the nail on the head with there's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of question marks. It's Jake Odorizzi. When we talked at the beginning of the season, we said, could he be, the next happy ending pitching story, the same way that Charlie Morton was over there, the same way that Brad Peacock was, the same way that Justin Verlander had a resurgence, and Zach Greinke is not better than he ever was, but better than he was with the Diamondbacks, I would say. And so, the answer so far on that is no. And it's only a few starts, but, the answer so far on that is no. And honestly, that's okay. You can't keep the expectation that every time you pick a pitcher up off, and Odorizzi is probably not worthy of me saying off the scrap heap. He's been better than that. But, when you grab a guy who's kind of that lottery ticket, that's sort of – you can't expect to win them all. And the Astros have been winning a lot of those lottery tickets lately. So I think what we're seeing now is the result. We saw the Rangers do this for years where they would grab a guy, get lucky, and go, oh, cool. And so the next year they grab a guy and say, oh, man, this is the next Mike Minor. Oh, man, this is the next Cliff Lee. And they just weren't. Eventually it's like, oh, it turns out when you buy a lot of lottery tickets, you lose more than you win. And I think that's what we're seeing.
The other thing too is, and I'll point to Kevin Gausman. I mean, this guy was a reclamation project with Atlanta, and then I think Colorado. I could be wrong. Maybe it was Cincinnati. But either way, but the Giants picked him up in the offseason. So they saw something out of him. They worked with him. He had a very respectable, I think it was a 3-3 record with a solid ERA as opposed to 2 and a 9 at the end of 2019 with a 6.5 ERA or something like that. But they had time to work with him. All right. Same thing in this offseason. And he's 3-0, I think. No, 1-0, but he's had 3 really solid starts, including last night's gem where he allowed no runs in 6 innings. My point is, with Jake Odorizzi, he's had 2 starts. He's had 1 very short offseason with Houston. So I want to give it some time. I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater just yet with him. I'd like to see him get about 5-6 more starts before we make some type of a judgment as to whether this was a bad choice or a good choice. But obviously the Astros saw something in him. I know it was out of desperation when Framber Valdez went down and there was nobody else. The cynical side says, well, there's a lot of teams out there that need a lot of pitching, right? So why didn't anyone else pick him up? Well, that's what happens sometimes. But let's see if we can give him some time. I'd like to see him get about 5 or 6 starts. Granted, the first 2, they were washouts, right? He didn't make it out of the 4th inning, I think, in either one of them. So that's concerning. But I mean, they need guys to eat innings, just like Mr. Luca was just saying a couple of weeks ago. The one thing that he was concerning him is that these starters are not going deep into the games. Again, only 3 quality starts, I think, and all of them out of Zach Greinke.
Yeah, it definitely.
Jose Urquidy hasn't been what we expected either.
Yeah.
And but he's a young guy, so you're working on that. Justin Verlander's not healthy. You've got him out. Lance McCullers is coming back from injury. So again, like you said, there's question mark and potential all over these guys. I don't think we've seen Framber Valdez at all this year, have we?
No, no, not at all. But here's the other guy who we haven't seen after he's got 2 starts and they sent him down. Is Christian Javier.
I question that. Yeah.
What's going on? Was it because of all the off days or what? I don't understand it because they needed arms in the bullpen and they sent him down.
I think part of it too was to kind of piggyback off that, Mike, was to make room for Odorizzi on the roster for that 26th man roster spot or 40 man, however you want to look at it. But yeah, a guy that actually did have a couple of good starts under his belt and was throwing, I'm not going to say lights out, but had a pretty high percentage of strikeouts per 9 innings and everything else. I questioned that move a couple of weeks ago when they needed Odorizzi to get the first start and make room on the 40-man roster last week when he went to the alternate site in Corpus. I was like, why? I mean, of course, I couldn't answer that question too, but at the same time, if that was the easiest ones or options or what have you or that kind of thing. But I'm very surprised that like Zach said, outside of Greinke, there's been no second or third guy come in and take this like a Garrett Cole, a Verlander, a Charlie Morton, somebody that's going to come in. And I'll say this, I know the lineup's been out, Altuve's still out, and some players are coming back tonight with the Colorado brief 2-game series before they come back home. But again, it's early. The Mariners have impressed. And speaking of that too, Zach, things are clicking for Seattle anytime you beat a division rival 2 out of 3. Plate discipline's been good. Scott Service has been there a long time, so he's seen his guys kind of go through the rebuilding process of Jerry DiPoto making trades from his hospital bed over and over again. But let me say this too. It's not a team to fool around with. We talked about Mitch Haniger. We talked about a lot of these young players that are starting to kind of figure it out, J.P. Crawford and some others. What's impressed you most about the Mariners, Zach?
I think for me, the pitching. Again, it's sort of a surprise. You're kind of like with the Red Sox, like we talked about. You look at a guy like Marco Gonzalez, who did some great things for the Blue Jays a while ago, but you just kind of write him off as, maybe a has-been, kind of was there, isn't anymore. James Paxton's not healthy, so, what are you really expecting out of this crew? And so far, they've been really solid. And they've had, super solid outings with Rafael Montero, former Ranger from us. Guys like Kendall Graveman throwing well, and you're just seeing better than expected, I guess you could say, out of a lot of these kids who honestly, as a baseball fan and someone who follows the game pretty closely, and I would say closer than most, I don't, which is good. I guess I probably shouldn't be on this show if I didn't. But I'm sorry, the Seattle who again? Remind me.
Yeah.
But they
first place Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, but I look at I pulled up their roster just to flip through it, and I'm sitting here going, I don't remember that guy. Who is that? I'm like, shoot, I don't think I know some of these names. Like, it's usually when you see a team's doing well, you see a team like the Dodgers, you pull them up and you go, oh yeah, Walker Buehler. Oh yeah, of course. Oh, Julio Urias. Oh yeah, of course. Clayton Kershaw. But yeah, you look at this crew and you go, oh, Justice Sheffield. Yeah, he was like a one-time top prospect who kind of fell off and all of a sudden came out this year and he's throwing pretty well. Like, that's and it's not lights out stuff. It's not, top of the rotation, but with Justice's case, you're talking about a 24-year-old kid who's shown that he can hang in a big league rotation. So, good for him. And with that, you'll see the offense take off as well. And guys like Evan White playing, lights out defense. What else do you want? Especially with a guy like Ty France, and you finally got who's the outfield? Mitch Haniger.
Right.
Mitch Haniger. Yeah.
And you got Ryan Lewis back from the DL finally. They activated him today. So they're excited to get him back. I mean, they've got 3 Gold Glovers on their infield. So yeah, their pitching is solid, but they're not going to make any mistakes. Now, many mistakes in the infield. They're not going to beat themselves. So that's good.
And I guess to kind of build on this too, Zach, when you were a player and you put on the uniform and you're out there playing every day and grinding at bats and playing your position in the field too, this kind of reminds me of what the Astros did in 2015 when you had guys like Colby Rasmus and a couple of free agent signings that were taking players off the scrap heap and putting them on there. Nothing was expected. So you could kind of go out there in 162-game season, play a little freelance, play a little bit, no pressure. I'm not in all these articles and, of course, MLB Network and some other different publications don't think a lot about my team. So I can just go out there and, play with the monkey off my back, no pressure. Is that kind of the mindset as a player now with the guys you mentioned there, the Evan Whites and the Mitch Hanigers are like, well, nothing's expected of us, but hell, we'll just go out there and play ball and see what happens.
That's a player by player thing, because I could also throw out to you Trevor Bauer, who loves the spotlight, who loves the center of attention, and when he's up there, when he's on the biggest stages, he excels, and we're seeing that this year with his performance. He has stepped up to the task of playing for the biggest and best team with the biggest and best contract, because that's where he thrives. Simultaneously, you've seen guys that they get traded from, they're big in Kansas City and they get traded to the New York Yankees, and then they just flounder because they just can't handle it all. So I think it just depends on the player. It's really a guy-to-guy situation, but teams will definitely keep a chip on their shoulder. You'll have teams that come in, and if you tell me this, you're sitting in a locker room and you're looking across the way and you see an athlete like Kyle Lewis sitting over there, and you know that he's standing next to Mitch Haniger, who's playing in your outfield, and you've got J.P. Crawford and Evan White on your infield, and you've got young guns like Taylor Trammell who are hungry and who again are Taylor Trammell, Justice Sheffield, guys who were once those top of the heap, once those guys everyone was like, you're the next guy, you're the guy. And now they're not. And guys like us sitting in there, sitting at home doing nothing, saying, oh, they're not good anymore, or, oh, they're not going to, they're not what we thought they would be. And you're going, I'm 23 years old. What do you, so you get a team of those guys in a room together, and you get someone on Fangraphs or someone at MLB TV, whatever, says, oh, the Mariners, they're not going to keep up with the A's and the Astros. They're just not, they're just not good enough. I mean, that's the stuff. I remember Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, when he was ranked last by a Fangraphs author for shortstops for baseball. He said he was a catcher trying to play shortstop. And Isaiah Kiner-Falefa tweeted that he was hanging that in his locker, and he took that article and he hung it in his locker, because every single day he wanted to look at that article and remember that that's how little they thought of him. And some guys, man, they take that and they just run with it. And I think the Mariners have done that as a whole.
Feeding off that too, Mike. I mean, playing with no pressure, just going out there and having fun and playing a kids game, and not a lot expected out there, but players, Zach's right, it can fuel the fire to hear that from publications and go out there. And I'm not saying it's a long-term thing here, because the trade deadline is July 30th, and of course some other things can happen. Players going on the COVID list, which has affected Houston and some other teams out there too. But it's performances like this today when you get Marco Gonzalez, 7 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, still high ERA. Sadler, Middleton come in and lose a tough, hard luck game 1-0 to the Dodgers, who are hot right now. We all know at 14-4, Mike. So this is go out there, play with no pressure, and take these young kids, and let's just see what happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, they still have to go back east. Mm-hmm. They still have to go to Houston and play them for 4 games after the Astros play their 2-game series in Colorado. So that's going to be very interesting. That's going to be very challenging for them. They obviously have the hardest travel schedule in all of Major League Baseball. They have to travel the farthest. So, and we haven't gotten out of April yet. They haven't really gone out of the West Coast yet, I don't think. Mm-hmm. So let's reserve judgment for right now. As long as they continue to pitch, as long as their bullpen continues to do well, and as long as they continue to catch the baseball, field the baseball, and throw it where it's supposed to be, and not beat themselves, they've got a puncher's chance for sure.
Yeah, and, the National League too, Zach, of course, the team expected to be there, and not surprising. You look at the record, you're like, well, 12-2, can they sustain it? 14-4, and this kind of thing. But a team that is expected to be there with all the bells and whistles, the World Series champion, Los Angeles Dodgers. I still can't believe I'm saying that. But I did pick them last year, picked them again this year to beat the Yankees in our little preseason kickoff show we did a few weeks ago. And they're playing like
working out for you.
What's that?
How's that Yankees pick working out for you so far?
It's April.
It's April. Yeah. But that's another question I'm about to ask you too when it comes down to it, about how just awful they play, what Mike and I were talking about before the show. But talking Dodgers here, I mean, any buttons they push, Zach, it's all cooking, and it's still guys coming up making contributions that we don't hear about on an everyday basis. Or if you do, you're watching Dodger telecast full time on the extra innings telecast out there. But this is Los Angeles, and Mike's right. It's early. I get it, but something's going right in Dodger camp, Zach.
Yeah, well, I thought about texting you because I thought, man, we could do it. If you guys like this idea, if y'all want to take this breakdown, let us know in the comments sections on our social medias. But man, I think we could do a whole show. We could probably do a whole month, but we could definitely do a whole show on the Dodgers versus the Padres. Because I watched that series
I watched the entire series. What an epic series that was, huh?
Oh man, I mean, it truly did. Everyone said it afterwards, but it's just so true. This was playoff baseball in April. This was just hardcore. The pitchers were on, the hitters were on, the defense was going, the offense. It was just everything you wanted in a series there was. And you just don't find a slouch when you look at this roster. And then the crazier thing is they just keep finding more of them. I mean, remind me again who Zach McKinstry is.
He's an outfielder / first baseman / rookie of the year candidate. Don't forget Luke Raley also.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this team's lost. They have lost MVP Cody Bellinger for an undetermined amount of time, and they haven't missed a beat yet. They only had Mookie Betts for the Padres series because remember he had a back injury, came back for the Padres series. Now he took one on the elbow, so he's day to day again. They're still 14-4. It's just amazing. Look at the pitching. Julio Urias. They've been waiting for this guy for years. He throws a 1-hitter over 7 innings. He struck out 11.
Yep.
It's just they make me sick.
It does.
And that's their 5th worst starter. That's their number 5.
Yeah. What a problem to have if that's your number 5 starter. But right there, neck and neck to Mike has been your Giants sitting quietly there. I mean, quietly 10-6, but right there, some on base percentage. I mean, I get it, but let me say this: we know every year or in years past, we know the teams that have been in it, the big markets, that kind of thing. Cubs and Braves and Yankees, Dodgers, that kind of thing. What I like about these early standings, and I'm not saying it's going to be sustainable, it could be for some of these teams that aren't expected to be in first place, Mike, it's nice to see the Giants kind of have this reincarnation. It's nice to have Seattle top of the division, the Kansas City Royals, the Cincinnati Reds, sitting there at the top of the Central, and I'm with Zach too. If the Padres and Dodgers, if that's what this is going to feel like for another 10, 15 games this year, this has been fun to watch. It's an early season. It's our fourth show we're on the air. But definitely, Mike, this is pretty cool to see your Giants and some of those young players.
The greatest sin for the Giants is that they're in the same division as the two best teams in the National League.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they have a puncher's chance to be in the playoff mix for sure. And look, they matched the Dodgers pretty well last year. I think they went 4-6, and most of those losses were one-run affairs. And keep in mind, they played 7 of the 10 games in Los Angeles, which is hostile territory for them for sure. But I mean, look, Evan Longoria has had a career start to his year. Buster Posey had a couple of home runs early. Their pitching has been absolutely lights out. Their bullpen has been great, aside from 2 blowups. Opening day against Seattle, where they blew a 6-0 lead, and then the Saturday game against Miami. I almost said Miami, Guano, where they blew 2 2-run leads, one in the 8th and one in the 9th. So, but other than that, they've been lights out. Tyler Rogers already has 10 appearances. He didn't make one yesterday because he was Gabe Kapler didn't want to overuse him. Jake McGee is on the COVID list. So what do? They bring in this other kid, Camilo Duval, who makes his major league debut on Sunday, I believe, and just throws lights out. And he also threw a scoreless 8th inning yesterday. I mean, yeah, and they've been playing very, very good defense. Tommy La Stella at second base, he's there for his bat. And there's still some guys like Mike Yastrzemski. He's hitting under a $190. He needs to get going. He will get going. But for right now, I mean, their pitching is carrying the day for them.
It is, and I'll say playing tonight with the Phillies as a game coming up tonight with the Giants. It's actually in progress right now. Yep. Zach Wheeler on the mound, Alex Dickerson up to the plate. That's the kind of stuff we get here, Zach. Instant gratification and instant box scores on the pitch. Look at that. Real time, live, my friend, live. So any comments out there? Good audience tuned in already here.
Hey, I also got to give it up for the Royals. They're playing some. I mean, their young pitching staff is. I mean, they're top. I mean, look, that was supposed to be a juggernaut. I mean, the Chicago White Sox are my pick to win the World Series, and here are the Royals spoiling the party with their defense, with their pitching. Danny Duffy threw great, even though he took the loss yesterday. I mean, he allowed 2 earner runs to score because Carlos Santana, who's at first base, also for his bat. I mean, he dropped the pop-up and then, threw gasoline on the fire by throwing it in second base and throwing it into the outfield because he didn't know the situation. But, I mean, look, other than that, they're just playing solid baseball. Now, the next 10 days for them are going to be really key. They got the Rays, and I think then they have the White Sox on the road and then Cleveland back at home. So it's going to be very important these next couple of weeks for them. But I love what I see out of them.
Yep. Great.
Mike, great question for you. So when you look at these Giants, and I've talked about this before with my Rangers, I think we have a tendency. It's easy for us to look third person on a lot of these teams. It's pretty easy for me to look at the White Sox and just make a bar none assessment of where I think they're at. It's tough for me to look at the Rangers and think, oh man, I think we might need to trade Joey Gallo. I think we should trade Joey Gallo. I hate to say that because I love Joey Gallo, but I think we should trade Joey Gallo. I think we should trade Kyle Gibson. Especially if he keeps throwing the way he's throwing. You're talking about a guy right now who's a true number one. And again, it's only the first few games, but if he can keep this up, there's too much value out there. Someone's going to want him. Someone's going to need him. And if we can build something and grab someone who's not going to be here for 2 more years, but who's going to be here for 7, I think we need to go get that guy. And so these are the kinds of things that I look at and I go, I know it hurts. And your question is going to be, well, then who pitches for Texas the rest of the year? And I go, I don't know. We'll find somebody. But if we can extract that value, a la the Rays, a la the Oakland A's, I think that's the game to play. I think that's the way to do it. So looking at the Giants, Mike, what do you think they should do with a guy like Kevin Gausman, who's only 30 and is pitching better than he ever has before? What do you think they should do with a guy like Johnny Cueto, who's aged, and he just got hurt, I believe. But
yeah,
but
he's got a grade 1 lat strain, and so there's no timetable for him to return. Your question's a valid one. I would think that their first trade shit would have been Johnny Cueto until he got injured. I would hate to see Kevin Gausman go because they put so much work into him, and he likes being in San Francisco. He turned down multiple year offers to accept the 1-year qualifying offer from the Giants, and so he likes what's going on. Maybe they go out of character here and sign him to a 4 or 5 year deal. I don't know. I don't know if Farhan Zaidi, the guy in charge of things, is going to do something like that. But they have to think if Brandon Belt is a tradable commodity, and then maybe finally move Buster Posey to first base and bring in Joey Bart behind the plate. Apparently, but the thing is that everything's in a holding pattern, guys, until the minor league seasons start kicking into gear, right? Because right now the alternate sites are in gear, and you can't really judge your talent against your own people. I mean, it's hard to have these inter squad games. I mean, that doesn't really do much. I mean, until May, when the low A and the double A seasons start to get going, then you can see, okay, is Joey Bart ready for the major leagues? I think he's still a year away, so I think that's why they're holding off. But those are the three guys. Brandon Crawford's 35 years old. I don't think anybody want him. And the other guys are Brandon Belt and of course Johnny Cueto, and I would hate to see Kevin Gausman go.
Yeah, you always want to keep that veteran presence on your staff. And I'll say this, we're going to take a little quick break for Toe Air Guitars, but I want to come back and talk about this guy named Tyler Glasnow. Mike, this is a 40% strikeout rate. That means you're striking out 2 out of every 5 batters. And most people are saying this guy could be the top 3 finisher in the Cy Young, if not win the damn thing. So we'll see how things go. But this guy's throwing lights out right now. Right now, a word from Tour Guitars here on the Backstage Pass. Of course, the Pitch Baseball Podcast is live out there on the Backstage Pass YouTube channel, Facebook page. Of course, Mike and Zach's socials out there. Get some comments. Go and read some. We come back from this little quick word from how you get your custom-made guitar. Here it is.
If you're looking for one of the most beautiful and playable custom acoustics on the planet, look no further than Ed Rice at Toe Air Guitars. Ed is a true artist, transforming exotic woods into magnificent, sweet-sounding instruments. Go to toearguitars.us, that's TOIRGUITARS.us, and contact Ed today.
And we appreciate Ed Rice and all he does for the Backstage Pass music shows, which are daily out there across the definitely a good guy out there too, and that's how you get in touch with Ed and get your custom-made guitar. Also, thanks to Bangtail Whiskey, bangtail.com, or you can download the Easy Liquor app and get the bottle sent directly to your door. Zach, it's just impressed me, 40% strikeout rate. This guy named Tyler Glasnow, we saw battle Garrett Cole in Game 5 of the division series. Looking back at this a couple years ago, who should we go with in Game 5 and that kind of thing, leading up to the 2019 World Series. Of course, they lost to the Nationals, but we saw this guy kind of come into form, and a guy that they knew that had the stuff, the overpowering fastball, the good breaking stuff, but he's now added this little pitch called a slider to complement everything that's overpowering out there, and 40% strikeout rate through his starts, 2 out of every 5 batters. I guess kind of a 2-part question, Zach. Can he keep this going? And is this a guy we could look up at the end of the year and say he's going to be a top 3, top 4 Cy Young candidate?
I mean, I think so. The question of can he keep up a 40% strikeout rate, I'll just, I never want to doubt anybody here, but, can a guy pitch 150 or 170 something innings, strike out 2 out of every 5? I strongly doubt that, and more power to him if he does, I guess. But yeah, I think that slider has been a nifty little trick in his back pocket. He hasn't thrown it too much this year, if I'm not mistaken. But he's starting to throw it a little more. And I was trying to, as soon as you mentioned that, I was trying to find, if I'm not mistaken, I think he has thrown it. Here we go. I had this on my phone just a minute ago. Let's see.
Well, while you're looking that up, I mean, the thing for me with him is durability. He hasn't thrown any more than 112 innings in any year yet. Now, look, he's got incredible stuff, incredible control, no question about it. But if he's going to be a number one, he's got to throw 200 innings plus. And this is the year for them to do it, especially now because they're short on starting pitching, and their relief corps has taken a hit. They got 3 guys out of the bullpen that are on the DL already.
Yeah, and I'm with you on the health aspect of it too. I think that's a big thing that to kind of see where Mike was going at that point too, Zach, is he has been injury prone. That's why, for me at least, he didn't show up to that 2019 season where he kind of put it all together, rounded into form, stayed healthy. And Mike, I'm probably pretty sure that was the year he probably had the 120, 140 innings when he finally put it all together and stayed healthy there. But they've got some guys that can. I know Rich Hill's going tonight for the Tampa Bay Rays and that kind of thing. So again, age kind of defies everything out there. Father Time catches up with you. Got back Chris Archer, that kind of thing. But I'm with you on that. If you can't stay healthy, Zach, it's going to be tough to finish in that top 4 for the Cy Young too. So.
Absolutely. And I was incorrect. I didn't find the stat that I thought I had. So I must be thinking of something else. But I don't think he's throwing that slider a whole lot. But to me, I think that just says what kind of stuff this guy has, where in an offseason he can add a pitch. And we've heard pitchers doing this before, but it's always to mixed results. And for him to come in, add a brand new pitch, that really is going to lengthen his repertoire and give when a hitter steps up to the plate, if you're looking fastball, and you're going to sit on a nasty curveball or something like that, very few guys are. That's why you see a lot of these two pitch relief pitchers. He's got a big old, like an Aroldis Chapman, big old fastball and a nasty slider. Now Chapman's actually added a splitter, if I'm not mistaken, but
he did.
But generally speaking, you see these guys got a big 1 pitch and a big 2 pitch, and that's it. So for Glasnow to expand his pitch ability, to go from, I'm not just an overpowering guy. I don't just stand up here and throw 100 miles an hour with my 7-foot body. He's showing that he can learn to pitch and can work through some of those tough outings. And so I think that's really going to be the biggest key, because that's what will keep him busy long term.
And of course, if you're a baseball junkie like all 3 of us, this article that I pulled up and did my show prep on is 30 teams, 30 stats that stand out. It's on MLB.com, so free for all the readers out there and all the baseball junkies like us that want to find cool stuff, not just to talk about the things that really stand out in the first 4 weeks of the season, as we're almost to the games in May. Sticking back to the AL Central too, Mike, and get your opinion on this. The strikeout theme, I want to stay with it. Shane Bieber, no fluke of last year, 48 strikeouts through his first 4 starts right there too as well. And this stat came off of there, I had to write it down. 13 strikeouts for Bieber against the Reds on Sunday. Made him the first pitcher at least since 1893 to fan at least 10 hitters in his first 4 appearances of a season. I mean, there's something clicking. I get it, the double-digit strikeouts thing, Mike. But and again, this is not a team that we expect to be there under Terry Francona at the end of it. But letting go of some high-priced players, Lindor walks. I take the money, I put it into pitching. I signed some young core guys. I get players back in a trade that I think can help us as an organization down the line. Things are working pretty decently in Cleveland, and this is not something Bieber's going to keep going, but Mike, he's showing 2020 wasn't a fluke.
Yeah, I mean, it's very surprising. I really thought that after they let go of Carlos Carrasco, they traded him to the Mets along with Lindor, and they traded Mike Clevinger the year before. They've got they've got the AL Cy Young Award winner in Shane Bieber. Don't call me Justin. And then, of course, Zach Plesac, who's the slouch either. But the thing that concerns me is that they strike out a ton. I mean, Jose Ramirez is the one guy who I fear. The rest of that lineup, I don't. They just absolutely – I mean, there was one game where Jose Ramirez beat the Royals all by himself. He had two 2-run homers, and that was their entire scoring. So, and again, that AL Central with the White Sox and the Royals is just going to be an absolute juggernaut. And they've got great pitching, but they've got to actually put the ball in play.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, looking back at it too at the same time, that Zach's so true when he said earlier that point is you got to have that 1 and 2, and I tell you, turn on the telecast. It's one thing to watch Greinke go about his business, but it's another thing to watch your top-tier starters like a Verlander go after his business and get out there and know how to work hitters, outthink hitters, play that mind game with them, and just outsmart them and pitch inside, kind of like Roger Clemens used to do. Andy Pettit, I mean, guys just had raw stuff. And you're seeing more and more of that on staffs now, Zach, is that guys can get out there and young guys throw 99 and 100, but at the same time, you have some guys like a Rich Hill, a Greinke, Clayton Kershaw, guys like that who don't have to get it up there in the upper 90s, but just know how to finesse hitters and outsmart them. And I think we're starting to see more young kids come up, including the bullpen. I was going to mention, we talked a little bit about the Royals too. I mean, 55 straight wins, but leading after 7 innings. That is crazy. You get good bullpens to back up good starters, Zach. I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. Well, and I want to touch on that Shane Bieber. This is a breakdown. One of my favorite players of all time, and of course, he's a Ranger, Nolan Ryan. Mm-hmm. All right. The strikeout king. The last pitcher to strike out as many people as Shane Bieber was Nolan Ryan.
Crazy.
Through 4 appearances. In 1978, Nolan Ryan had 48 strikeouts. In 1973, he had 46. Shane Bieber so far this year had 45 in his first 4 appearances. That's just nuts. I mean, that is absolutely nuts as far as strikeout rates goes, because nobody struck out batters the way that Nolan Ryan struck out batters. And it's pretty crazy to me to see someone pull that off. And I'll bet Nolan did it in twice the innings too. So, man, it's cool to watch guys learn the game. You know, I've never been a big fan of the power game personally. I'm not a big fan of the guys that throw 100 and the guys that, you know, strike out every other plate appearances and hit home runs in the other half. You know, the Adam Dunns of the world. Adam Dunn's great. I'm sure he's a great guy. Nothing against him. But
the Adam Dunn cycle, the walk, the strikeout, the home run. Is that what it is?
That's right. Yeah. I just don't love that game because that game is boring to me, because even a home run happens in 2 seconds. What I like to see is a double down the line that I don't know if he's going to make it to third or not, because he might stretch it into a triple because the guy's got wheels, but the outfielder's got an arm. You know, that's the kind of baseball that I think is exciting. So I think it's cool to see guys kind of, even in this era of power pitching, power hitting, et cetera, see some guys not necessarily ditch that, but some of the guys that maybe don't have it, like yours truly, say, you know what, I'm going to figure out a better way to do this. You know, if I can't play, it's the Moneyball strategy. If I can't play the same game he does, I'll play a different game.
Well, you know, you bring up a good point in the fact that a colleague of mine at work got into a debate. He popped me up on IM saying, "Hey, they're experimenting with moving the pitching rubber back 1 foot." And I said, "Yeah, that's in the South Atlantic League or the Florida Atlantic League. Mm-hmm. It's an experimental thing. They're going to do it in the second half of the season." I said they're trying to increase scoring, and you know, they're because you know it's all about, you know, the home runs and there's too many strikeouts. I mean, heck, the first week of the season, guys, we had 2 no-hitters. One was almost a perfect game by Carlos Rodon, only because he hit a guy in the foot with 2 strikes. But so, I mean, it's just, and it's so ironic how the thing that some of the baseball intelligentsia think that the casual fan loves, which is the home run, makes actually for a more boring ball game. I mean, give me the play at the plate. Give me the guy like a Jazz Chisholm who legs out triples. Yeah. Give me that type of ball game any day of the week over just, you know, what the Yankees are doing, just swinging for the fences, feast or famine, striking out and hitting home runs. You know, it's just they have to figure out how to get more excitement in the game. And so I'm with you, Zach. Give me the manufactured runs, because what I was telling this guy was like, what they want to do is that they want to actually manufacture runs. So that's why they want to move move the mound back. And he says, well, no, they're going to swing for the fences even more. I'm like, no. I mean, he actually tried to tell me that if they move the mound up, you'll see more manufactured runs. I said, no, you'll see more strikeouts and less home runs. It's like, because they won't have any time to react. You think they're having problems now? I mean, wait do you think if they move the mound up a foot? It was. I don't know where I'm going with it.
You'll still see guys throwing 100 because the way they. So for those of you playing at home, the way that they measure, and this is why I highly recommend. There's an awesome documentary. If you're a big baseball fan out there, watch Fastball. It's so cool. I don't know if you two have seen it. Great little documentary that they put together about the game and specifically about pitching. And one of the things it covers is the highly disputed fastest pitch ever, quote unquote. And the reason it's highly disputed is just because technology has changed so much. We radar guns measure speed differently than StatCast measures speed. And then when you go back to Walter Johnson, they had him they set up a big screen, a giant screen, and they had a guy ride a motorcycle at 80 miles an hour. and they had Walter Johnson get ready to pitch. And as the motorcycle went by, Walter Johnson threw the pitch, and then they had a old school video camera on the other side that filmed which one came through first. And then they just tried to do the math on which one went through first and how fast he must have thrown. So this is why this is a hotly debated topic, because we just don't have consistency over these mediums of measurement. So I think what you're still going to see Aroldis Chapman throw 103 and the next Aroldis Chapman throw 105. You're still going to see these guys pumping, because that's just how they don't measure it the same way. They measure peak velocity. So whether it's right out of his hand or at the plate, they measure that at 100 miles an hour. And that's why we're paying more attention to things like spin rate, because as a hitter, if it's 100 out of his hand, but it slows down by the time it gets to you, that's not as harsh as something that's slow out of his hand but zips on by you as soon as it gets to the plate. So all that knowledge dump to kind of say you're still going to have fast pitching, you're still going to have the big numbers, the big flashy cool stuff from the mound. What you're giving the hitters is an extra half of a hundredth of a second to see the ball. Yeah. Because right now it should literally be impossible if you measure a 95 or a 90 mile an hour fastball going 60 feet 6 inches, your brain and your eye does not have time to see it, calculate it, and hit it. And the fact that we have figured out how to do that is mind-blowing.
And those small sample sizes, too, for what's going on there. He mentioned an extra tenth of a second for a lot of players that have played the game for a long time. Yes, the timing matters in hitting and the setup, the stance, everything. How far we're going to stride, get our hands to the baseball, square up, hit on top of it, all those little things that matter that come into detail. So great documentary to mention there that people need to check out, including myself too. But I've seen little bits and pieces of some preview stuff out there. That's one of the best. Let me say this, for the extra tenth of a second or whatever's doing well, Mike, at Comerica Park right now, the best manager hire, I'm going to say this again and again, despite – what he went through, A.J. Hinch in Detroit. He's rubbing off these players. I know, again, it's early. Heimer Candelario, 295 and a 377 on base. And right now, this is not going to continue for Wilson Ramos, but this home run binge and Robbie Grossman showing some plate discipline, on pace for 100 walks, which is pretty kind of high up there from an outfielder trying to draw 100 walks. And I'll say this. This is a park that plays well for doubles and extra base hits. And Candelario, Akil Baddoo, record-setting start, Wilson Ramos. I mean, it goes on to say that A.J. Hinch is a good manager. We knew that coming out of Houston. I think we may have jumped the gun early to fire him. I get the whole situation. But, look, they're not going to sustain it, Mike, but this has been a good start for Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a look. They're a good 2 to 3 years away. They still don't have Miggy back. He was lost to the IL a week into the season, but Akil Baddoo has been everything that they ever asked for. I mean, a little salt on the wound too, because he was a Rule 5 pick for the Minnesota Twins, who were supposed to contend for the AL Central as well. Robbie Grossman he's getting on base at a 400 clip, even though he's only hitting 220. So he's drawing a lot of walks. So that's good. He's putting the ball in play. Jonathan Shoup really needs to pick it up, though. But where this team is being built, where's their pitching? Michael Farmer, Matthew Boyd, Casey Mize, the young 24-year-old, Jose Arena, Tarek Skubal. These guys are all they're all under 30 years old. And Matthew Boyd, he's the leader of that staff. He's the elder statesman, and so far he's done very well. He's got an ERA just north of 2. So they've been a nice surprise. And yes, they're 6-10. Yes, they're in the cellar, but they're in an excellent division. And the future's bright for Detroit. And you mentioned the Pitchers Park. They're building this team for that park. This is what the Giants did when they opened up Pac Bell, nay AT&T, nay whatever you want to call it. Now it's called Oracle Park, whatever the heck it is. But they built it with pitching and defense. That's what that's what Detroit is trying to do right now. So good for them. They just unfortunately they've got a lot of competition. This isn't the AL East.
No, and this is, like I said, this is we're talking about the Tigers, Zach. I know you had to get your charger out there for the laptop and everything too as well. But it's just been a good start for Detroit and something that a lot of people didn't see coming. Heimer Candelario and Akil Baddoo and Wilson Ramos on a tear hitting the long ball and the plate discipline and the rub off. I'll say this, that A.J. Hinch coming from a winning organization minus the whole, cheating, what have you. But this guy was a good manager. He learned how to manage and the whole scope of it in Houston for 6 years. Learned a lot from the downfalls in Arizona. And, of course, that is an executive with the Padres in the front office. So a lot of good baseball savvy, I'll put there, can rub off on young players. And I like the fact that Detroit is one of those teams you don't expect a lot out of. But, again, you don't put pressure on me. I just get to go out there and play, and good things can happen. I want to pull a question, Zach, for you, actually, specifically. Tabitha, Zach, who's the best player right now through the first 4 weeks?
Ooh, who's the best player right now? Well, if we're going off, see, this is interesting because if we go with the first week, it was probably Yerman Mercedes of the Chicago White Sox, who pitched an inning the other day. By the way, I don't know if anybody saw that.
He's supposed to start tonight. Oh, you're mean, yeah. And he said, he didn't even give up any runs.
What can he do? What can he do? Man, it's if we're talking about right now, I think yikes. There's so many good ones. You got one?
I got one for you until he got hurt, Ronald Acuna Jr.
Yeah, that's pretty good right there. Yeah, it's
I mean, he's doing it all. He's stealing bases. He's hitting home runs. He's hitting for average. He's running down fly balls in the corner in a new outfield spot. Remember, they moved him over from center to right to make room for Christian Pache. And so he strained his oblique, I think. So it's a day-to-day thing. He's my pick.
I'd say this, and for me, Zach, I didn't mean to cut you off there. For me, I'm going to stay with your Rangers because I really feel like coming into this year, handed the ball at opening day, and he's lived up to it now as a legit starter, and that's Kyle Gibson. I think just in watching a few of the games there, ERA's dropped. I mean, the whip is up, the whole 9 yards. I mean, the ERA sitting right there at a microscopic ERA. We're sitting there under 1. But, I mean, again, it's early there. But I feel like a guy who's got the stuff. You talked about it earlier in the show that here's a guy that you hate to trade. You'll find somebody to fill the role. But this is a guy right now through the first month of the season that said, look, give me the ball. I'm taking it out there. And that's been my guy through the first month of the season, Kyle Gibson. And we lose sight of that because he had such a bad opening day start. But I want to read you this stat. His ERA went from a 135, and this will tell you how little stock is really put into a lot of this at the beginning of the year. Went from a 135. If you're not a big baseball player, a good ERA would be like a 3.2 to 3.4. Like that would be good. That would be not crazy, but good. And so this is 135.0. That's and then it dropped to a 4.05, and it's currently at a 2.53, which, as I mentioned before, if a good one 3.2, he's at a 2.53, and that's with that terrible start. If you take that bad start out, his ERA is, are you ready for it? 0.43.
Wow.
Yeah, That's nuts. And I that's what I was
That's why
saying.
they
I took
call
the
it
start
earned
out.
run
Yeah.
average.
Average. That's why I was taking the start out. I kind of misspoke there, but that's where I was going with it. You take the start out.
I'm gonna be super basic baseball fan here, but I'm sitting here. I was trying so hard to think of somebody else, and this is all I could think of. My best player right now is Mike Trout.
Yeah, no, that's.
He's hitting. You got a 354 average, almost a 500 on base percentage.
Yeah,
like he's already hit 4 home runs on the year. He's playing Gold Glove defense in the outfield. It feels so old hat, but oh my word, you cannot watch this guy and not just be in awe of everything he does.
You just think about the other 12 teams or whatever that passed him up on the draft and just like ask him, what the heck were you thinking?
What were you doing?
I mean, were you asleep? I mean,
and if I can actually sit down on the Angels real quick.
Still there, he froze up.
It's like he froze up.
There he goes. Wow. Okay.
Hey,
there you are.
Here we go.
If I can sit down on the Angels for a second, I'll open up the chat room, as it were, for you guys. And the question is, Albert Pujols. Albert Pujols, he is a Hall of Famer, no question. He's one.
Looks like he froze up again. Looks like there too. Yep.
Oh, can you still hear me?
Here you go. We're back now. We got you.
So Albert Pujols, one of the greats, no question. He's definitely been one of the big ones in my lifetime. I'm sitting here, I pulled up these stats, and I was just fishing through all his stats today. You're looking at a guy who's hit 663 home runs. So he's chasing down just the best of the best. And, I mean, he's got a home run this year, and he was averaging about 20 home runs a year over the past 5 years. Last year he had 6, which would have put him on pace for about 25 home runs if they had played a full season. So it's not like he has totally lost this here. His contract, his big mega deal that he signed with the Angels, 10 years, $240 million, it's up this year. This is his final year with the Angels. Mike, Brandon, I cannot imagine if he hits another 15, 20 home runs. I did the math on 15. If he hits 15 home runs this year, he's at he would have to hit 15 home runs this year and 15 to 20 home runs next year to break 700. His numbers so far show that is totally doable. Do you think someone signs him for it? Do you think that the Pirates or the Marlins or someone says, and probably someone who wants a DH, so probably an AL team, says, man, you know what? We'll take him. You know, do you think the Royals say, sure, why not? Well, of course, the Royals are competing at the moment, but does someone let him come on board just for the fun of the chase for those last year or so?
Prediction here, Mike. I'm going to throw this out here, see what you think about this. Last year with the Angels, the big contracts at Rendon and Trout, and, of course, some of the guys are still paying off the books that they've had for the last 10 or 15 years. I think he does get signed. I think it's a one-year deal, incentive-laden. I think it's chasing those records are very doable, so I agree with Zach on the 15 to 20 homers to break the 700 mark, and I think a team like Houston or Boston could take a flyer. I do. I think that because Yuli Gurriel's got an option for 2022, a mutual option. May not come back at 38 years of age. Could be. Jordan can move to first. There's talk about Correa leaving. You slide Bregman to short. You go out and get a third baseman. You keep Bregman at third. You go out and get a shortstop. A guy that can DH in Houston, hit 20 with a short porch in the Crawford boxes. I'm with Houston taking a flyer 1 year, 15, 16, whatever it takes to get it done. Boston, just because I think right now they're showing good plate discipline, and we know that each offseason, except for this past one, Boston's not afraid to spend money. I would see it in kind of a high-profile place or a team that still wants to win. He's got his World Series ring, Mike, but at the same time, I see it continuing for at least one more year, Mike, for Albert Pujols.
His veteran leadership is not to be.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. I think Boston could be a very solid choice, especially if JD Martinez opts out of his contract because he's got 1 year left 2022, and that is a player opt out. So if he says no thanks to the Red Sox, then that opens up a spot for Albert Pujols. It'd be nice if he would take a nostalgic tour, with St. Louis and maybe do a spot start with them every once in a while. But I don't think so because they got Paul Goldschmidt entrenched there. But I don't think that Los Angeles Angels, I don't think they're going to re-sign him because
Showing your age, Mike.
Right. Yeah, you'll watch my age. Exactly. I mean, they've got enough people that they want to bring in. They want to bring in Joe Adele. And so I think that his days with Los Angeles are over, but could he sign another year? Yeah, I think he's having enough fun. He's got 39 at bats already, so it's not like he's hitting 230. It's not like he's hitting 118 like Jay Bruce, where he said, "Look, I'm not competitive anymore. This isn't fun anymore. I mean, I got to give it up." The only person that said anything about him retiring was his wife at the beginning of the season. So of course, Albert is keeping very mum about it. He's not having a farewell tour on the major league parks and anything like that. So I think he's got it in his mind where he wants to play.
Yeah, I don't see it being a contender necessarily. When you guys say the Red Sox, I'm kind of surprised just because, I just don't know that they're going to – if JD stays, I don't feel like they really have the room for it. And even if he goes, I mean, Pujols, I love Albert Pujols. He is not going to be a replacement for JD Martinez. And in that high pressure, every Red Sox fan expects them to compete every year. And so I can't imagine that they would really take that as a win. And I will say, I guess Pujols is performing well, and he's hitting these 15, 20 home runs in a part-time role. So maybe that part-time role works out for him. But I would also say, for his sake, if he was going somewhere like St. Louis for a farewell tour, where he's going to sit behind Paul Goldschmidt the whole time and have no DH, I don't see that being successful for him either, because he's just not going to get the at-bats to accomplish the accolades that he's chasing in that. So I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's not much of a farewell tour if you're only playing one out of every 5 days.
Yeah, that's why I almost wonder about like the Orioles. Someone to come in there and sit there. The Tigers may not want to pay another Miguel Cabrera, but someone in the AL who could use a DH every couple of days and put him at first base and let him play 3 games a week. I could see that. I could see him signing another year or two just for the fun of it.
Certainly not the Yankees. Yeah. They got enough. They got enough DHs in their lineup.
But I'm gonna throw one team out there that many people may not be thinking about too, and he can reunite with his former skipper too at the same time. The Chicago White Sox. Look out for that. Tony La Russa there, and the fact that him being a guy that wouldn't have to sit behind most guys there and could DH, the White Sox could be a team in contention. Got to get a word in for Bangtail Whiskey. We'll come back and finish up here on the Pitch Baseball Podcast. Get our good, bad, ugly. For me, it's real simple for those 2 things. I'm going to combine one in a good and definitely talk about 2 good and then 2 bad and uglies to get the guys' opinions here. It's Mike Babbo, Zach Stone, Brandon Morrell. It's the Pitch Baseball Podcast presented by Tour Guitars and Bangtail Whiskey. Right now, a word from Bangtail. Here's how you get your bottle.
The Bangtail pour is comprised of a sweet corn mash base. The front has a subtle sweetness and not too sharp. It has notes of a medium char or white oak for a smoky flavor in the middle, and the tail has a super smooth and warm finish.
And a glass of that's coming up tonight here on the Pitch, and of course for the throat and all the sinus stuff that people have, it's good for that too. At bangtail.com or download the Easy Liquor app and get a bottle sent directly to your door. And also check out tourguitars.us. All right, so my good, bad, ugly before we get out of here for a Tuesday, I'm going to go with this. The good, I love, again, seeing other teams at top of the divisions that shouldn't be there, and it seems that if they keep this up at this type of pace, playoffs, I'll say that. Let me say this. The good for me, hats off, Jay Bruce, phenomenal career. Congratulations on retirement. The game's not fun anymore. I watched him since 2005 when he got drafted by the Cincinnati Reds out of Westbrook High School here in my hometown in Beaumont, Texas. Jay, props to you and a fantastic career. Always a great guy to get in touch with and this tremendous career. And thank you so much for your contributions to Major League Baseball and you living out your dream. The ugly, Mike, I'm going to go to you with this. The New York Yankees, enough said right there. Pressing, whatever else. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it for week 2. And let me say this, finally coming into his own, back to the good side of things, Bryce Harper, a 994, Mike, OPS.
Don't remind me. We're playing him.
But, man, this is what they signed him for. This is the $30 million plus AAV guy. And that's my good. Jay Bruce and, of course, Bryce Harper, 994 OPS. The bad and the ugly, I combine just to say, man, Houston better find some pitching. That's the ugly. And the Yankees better quit pressing at the plate. Mike, what you got?
My good is a tie between the Kansas City Royals. They're the surprise, in my opinion. They're the surprise of baseball at 9-6. These guys weren't supposed to compete for a couple of years. And a tie. The other team is the Oakland A's. After starting 1-7, they've ripped off 8 in a row, and they're already beating up on the Twinkies right now, 7-0. That's in the top of the 5th. Their starting staff has really come alive. The corner mats, Matt Olson and Matt Chapman, are destroying the baseball, and so good for them. The bad is the Astros starting staff. It's just, I'm sorry, Brandon, but I mean, it's just been pathetic. I mean, they can't get out of the 4th inning, much less the 5th inning, if your name is not Zach Greinke. And even Zach Greinke had a tough outing a couple of outings ago. The ugly for me is it was a tie between the Yankees hitters who do nothing but swing and miss. And I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit because Steve Phillips said this morning on MLB Network, they're not playing Yankee baseball. And he compared them with the 98 team. Stop it already.
Yeah.
They are playing Yankee baseball. They swing for the fences. Mm-hmm. They are nothing like the 98 team, like Jorge Posada and Derek Jeter and Bernie Williams, guys who worked the count, who wore pitchers out, who took walks if they had to. These guys, all they do, I mean, come on, Gary Sanchez, Giancarlo Stanton, Aaron Judge, even though Aaron Judge is having a decent year at the plate, I mean, he's still striking out a ton. But those two other guys, I mean, it's a joke. I mean, and I just can't. They're not the 98 Yankees. They are playing Yankee baseball, which is, hey, feast or famine. And the other team for me, the other ugly, is the Chicago Cubs. They're like hitting 160 as a team. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, they're another team that does nothing but hit home runs. I mean, yes, they had a breakout game against the Braves, 13-4, but then they turn around the next day and lost 13-4.
Yeah,
and two of their 4 runs were by 2 solo home runs by Anthony Rizzo. So those two are my ugly.
And the pitches that the Chicago Cubs are my ugly for sure, because that offense is awful. And what makes that even uglier is you're looking at all these guys who are going to be free agents at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to re-sign all these guys that can't hit? You know the pitch they're struggling with the most? The fastball.
Yeah.
How is it that Chris Bryant and who's really not hitting all that bad on the season, but how is it that that Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo and Javier Baez, all these guys that are fastball hitters not hitting the fastball? Well, how do you succeed there? And I think they're just lost, and I think they need an identity as a team there, and I think something needs to happen with that. And I wonder, I hate to be the guy that questions management, but I just wonder what's going on behind the scenes that makes this a collective issue. Because it's one thing to see one guy struggling, but you have all these all-stars that can't hit a fastball, and that's a problem. And again, especially when you're looking at they're all free agents next year. So are you gonna sign on the dotted line for how many years and how many millions of dollars to sign guys that can't hit a fastball? And simultaneously, who is going to sign them next year? And if they do sign them and they do figure it out, what did you get out of this? Because you had the opportunity. If you told me you could trade Javi Baez or Chris Bryant and get nothing in return, I never would have believed it until this year. Because what are you going to give up for a guy that can't hit a fastball?
Check out these stats, guys. Over the last 2 seasons, Javi Baez is hitting at a slash rate of 201, 241, 376. He's getting on base less than 25% of the time. And this year, his strikeout rate is almost 45% of the time. He's striking out almost half the time he's at the plate. I mean, I know we talked about him, Brandon. I know you talked about him, being a comparable replacement for Carlos Correa. Not under those circumstances. No way. Houston will put up with it. Not if they sign him to a $180 million deal over 6 or 7 years. They won't. Even the staid Astro fans will not put up with it. I mean, these are ridiculous. I had to look that up again.
Yeah, and I just did this little homework here. Y'all for what this is worth. I mean, again, 59 at bats at 803 OPS for Correa, 271, 3 homers and 6 runs batted in. So there's your. I get it. Maybe you push a little bit more there. You go from 20 to 25 to 26, but I don't think, and maybe I'm with y'all on this, and this is a big topic I want to bring up for next week's show is how much money do you give a guy? And do you feel like this should be a merit system these players should get based on performance? I think these contracts are getting out of control. In baseball, that's a big topic we're going to bring up next week. Zach, what was your good for the week? I want to ask you about
that. My bad is bad sportsmanship. That's the Yankee fans.
That's terrible.
They for those of you playing at home, they threw a whole bunch of baseballs on the field at the game the other day. They were losing 8-2, I believe, to the Rays.
Terrible.
And Yankee fans are fed up, man. They don't want to watch Giancarlo Stanton strike out and get hurt for another 8 years and pay him $25 million for the privilege. So they're upset. They want to know what's up, why they're in dead last, and what they're. I looked that up. As of a couple days ago, anyways. The Yankees were the third worst team in all of baseball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
they got the worst record in the American League. Yeah.
We always have a caveat. It's early. We're only 15, 16 games in, but that's unacceptable in New York City. I will tell you every day of the week.
Amen. No doubt.
My good is a great thing. I thought I'd end on the good so that we're ending on a high note here. If you didn't see it, first off, Shohei Ohtani, who has been amazing this year. He's been awesome. If you were looking for an electric player, you want to see a guy who throws 100 miles an hour and hits the ball 450 feet on a regular basis and can run faster than almost everybody else in the game. He's got elite running ability. You're talking about a great guy. I also want to throw in Albert Pujols, my man, stealing a base the other day.
On a double steal.
41 years old.
Yeah.
And he didn't just steal a base, he stole third base. He stole third. It was incredible. So that was fun to watch. And then the other fun thing to watch in that series was Kohei Orihara, Kohei Orihara, who's a new guy over here from overseas. Is he Korea?
No, he's from Japan.
Okay.
Yeah,
they
were teammates. Yeah, they were teammates.
Yeah, and so before Kohei Orihara's start, Shohei Ohtani went, applauded him, bowed to him, and said hi, and they got to talk before the game. That was a really, really cool moment and just proof of how this awesome sport brings people together and just brings all the love in the world, and that's why I love this game and I watch it every day.
It's a great game, and I'll tell you with these little tidbits. Just came over. I found some stuff out. MLBTradeRumors.com is a website we use to prepare for the show here. Some great articles. Mike and I talk about this all the time with Zach, too, and definitely group text messages we have. MLBTradeRumors.com is really good out there for a lot of cool things. There is an article up there. It's about 5 hours ago. It was posted. It's got a couple of shortstops. Head-to-head, the versus in there, kind of like the heavyweight fight. Carlos Correa versus Trevor Story. Who would you pick if you were building a franchise? Really good article. Check it out if you can. And also a couple other notes. Yasiel Puig signed with the Mexican League team. I'm sure you saw that, Mike, too. And also, too, hats off to him. Great career. We talked about Jay Bruce announcing his retirement. But as of 3 hours ago, Neil Walker, former Pittsburgh Pirate, great favorite out there. Neil Walker walking away from the game. So we appreciate all the contributions made there. Neil Walker, Jay Bruce, thank you for being just quality men and quality Major League Baseball players representing the game the way it should be. We're back next week as some topics are coming up. Good buddy Marshall Kellner is going to drop by here in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about some minor league baseball as it gets underway in May, the AA and AAA seasons, and, of course, some more cool things we're working here on the pitch coming up here in a few weeks as we enter May. Hard to believe the first month has gone by and flown by, just the first 16, 17 games. On the Backstage Pass tomorrow, Texas country artist Stoney LaRue is going to join us. Looking forward to that. And also a guy going on tour with Cody Johnson. Jordan Rowe is going to stop by here and talk about his new single on the Backstage Pass side of things. Mike, Zach, always fun to catch up. And, man, these things just keep getting better and better.
Yep.
Always great, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Just want to give a big shout out to Bullet Bob Charter. Thanks a lot for listening in and to viewing in. Appreciate it. And can't wait for week 3.
It'll be a lot of fun coming up here, too, and we'll see if some of our good, bad, ugly changes between now and next week. And then, of course, we'll talk some more on contracts next week. Should players be getting these mega deals or should it be kind of an Odorizzi type deal where you're paid based on your performance? And right now his performance is piss poor from my standpoint when it comes down to it. Or should you just go ahead and cash in and do 8 for $200 million or 340 for 11 years or 14-year deals for Tatis? But look forward to that too. We may have a little special guest coming up next week to chime in on that here. Thanks to Bangtail Whiskey and Tour Guitars for all they do for the program and the Backstage Pass. We'll see you guys on the pitch next Tuesday night from 6 to 7 as we close out April 2021. Stay tuned for more.